Hello, hi, and welcome again to the Terminal Podcast, where in the end, it's all about the numbers. This podcast is looking back to the 2018 original publication of the Rap Debut Album Tournament, or the RDAT. Tonight's episode is brought to you by The Wire, widely regarded as one of the best series of all time, but only after it was gone, since it received average ratings and never won awards during its 5 year run. The Wire is at the foundation of this 2-3 semifinal matchup in the NYC bracket. My guests tonight, if they're still visual, have reviewed some part of the RDAT articles posted on martinkester.com and dropped into the terminal tonight to continue this ever evolving conversation like civilized citizens. We'll start with introductions from my right and your favorite character from The Wire. Fuzz, I'll start with you.
Buzz, Washington, D.C. Um, we'll go Omar.
All right. Kenny?
Kenny calling in from McDonough. My favorite character was Clay Davis for obvious reasons.
All right. Ed?
My name is Ed Molina, calling from Brooklyn. Spread love the Brooklyn way. My favorite Wire character, without a doubt, Slim Charles.
All right.
That's for
DC guy,
Prop
DC guy.
Joe. That's for Prop Joe.
Well, Marlo and Omar are two of the one name characters from that show, and those two perfectly match the tone of the two artists at the time of their debut albums, in my opinion. Marlo, the young gangster on the come up, he's moved past the corners, he's now running shit like Biggie on Ready to Die, describing from start to finish his time from on the corner and what it's like to go from negative to positive, and it's all. Omar is the exact opposite. He's not trying to clean up anything. He's just trying to be who he is, the number one crook on the streets. That's the title DMX earned the moment it's dark and hell is hot dropped. He doesn't try to change. He's praying at the end for others to see the light. He's not saying he's going to change. He's saying, I hope if y'all can see the light through the badness, I'm still going to do. I'm not changing. So both are amazing. So there are no wrong answers in this. And because of that, I'm changing the format. Um, a choice from a selection of the similar themes featured on each album. We could discuss who had the top party track, but these albums are more like mood music before a robbery instead of a night around town. So, speaking of robberies, the first multiple choice question: the best description of a crime in progress. Crime Story, which is on DMX, or Warning by Biggie. Ed, I'll start with you.
I mean, out of those two, Warning. Just because I love the interplay of Biggie talking on the phone to the other guy. You know, you remember them dudes up the hill? Like, I love
Mm.
that interplay. For the longest time, I thought it was another rapper or some guest spot that wasn't, featured. And to come to find out, it's him. So I thought that was kind of cool. From what I understand, and Fuzz can attest to this more because he went to the tour. Puffy would do that part. I know his name is very toxic right now for very obvious reasons. So I thought that was kind of cool, that interplay when they did it in live shows. It's just, it's to me, it's one of the greatest story raps of all time. Like, even to this day, I'll be like, "Who the fuck is this page of media?"
All right. Buzz, between those two, between Crime Story and Warning, which one's the better of the two?
Warning.
All right. Kenny?
I have to second everyone else. Warning. Warning is just a legendary track. The beat, the sample, just the back and forth with Biggie by himself telling the story. Yeah, Warning is the undisputed winner.
All right. So, side
I
question to that. Okay. What?
I
What
was
did
gonna
you
say
say,
real
Ed?
quick. I will say about Crime Story, it's a very New York vibe, and I'm thinking the Tunnel in the late '90s. Like, it's a
Yeah.
very I robbed somebody and threw him over the scaffold at the tunnel type of vibe.
That's, I
Yeah.
mean, it's descriptive because he's not as descriptive a rapper as Biggie, but you can tell all the things that are happening there. I mean, like the whole description of police. We're looking for a man. I'm with him right there. And looking through, I can hear him in the door. Like, yeah, it's just me here. And you're like, that's not gonna work, but it does. That kind of whole thing with that story, and then of course the ending is what always has that story with me. The fact that he ends it with, yeah, no, C4 strapped to the chest, like that was different for me. But I understand that I'm switching over to a side question on all that. Who is the more shocked at getting shot? Which is the voice in the Mickey skit on the DMX album, which is it's me, Mickey, that person, or the two robbers that are outside Mickey's crib that suddenly get a dot on their forehead.
You got a red dot
Who's
too.
more shocked? Who's more shocked? Kenny, who's more shocked of the two?
Oh, absolutely. The two outside, because they couldn't believe that they both had red dots on their forehead. So absolutely. I think the both of them was more shocked than anybody else.
Ed?
Not only were they shocked, they realized at the last second what was happening. Like what's how this ends, this story ends. Which I think that it gives you a very finality, storytelling 101, middle, start, middle, end. Gives you a great end.
Buzz, you
What
with me
they
on the
said.
you want with me on the short story that somebody just comes up to a door. It's me, Mickey, and then suddenly gets popped because they're right in
No,
front of the
I'm
door.
co-signing. I mean, I don't have much to add.
That's fine. We're gonna go since I'm talking skits and such. Uh, who's got the best? Who of those two albums? Who's got the best skit, the best voiceover? And I'm going to recite most of these, which is I'm assuming it's Little Kim. That's right. We're it's not again, I guess it is quoted that's Little Kim that's on two of the different things who's having sex, calling him a KFC eating, slim fast drinking. That's Little Kim, right? We're all in agreement that's Little
I
Kim.
think it
Yes,
is.
we are. It's Lil Kim.
So that's one.
That's not
Uh
Charlie Baltimore.
that's-
Could have been, with Biggie.
uh let's see the one somebody who's they're in the jail. They just got to the jail and they talking about someone's talking bad about this mother at the other jail, and then the other guy's talking about you suspect, and we're gonna take him on a ride. We're gonna take him on a rough ride. It ends with the guy calling for the CO. CO, no, we're not familiar with that skit. I know this DMX album by the heart of my heart.
I am familiar with that skit. I like that skit more than the audio porn that I was given on Ready to Die. I'll be honest with you. It's like I want to skip through. Look, ain't nothing wrong with people humping. I just, it ain't me
Yeah,
humping. I don't want to hear
that
it.
is a that it's a full well. There's a apparent rumor that the dick sucking skit, the where that was actually something they recorded that just
I,
happened.
What dick sucking skit are we referring to?
not the one.
there's
The one
the
that
one
Rikers.
there is the one no there was the one on the DMX one where he's the woman answers the phone and he says whose dick you sucking, and they had that whole conversation. That
Yeah.
is one of them. But there's
Yeah.
a one on the Biggie album where this chick goes, I don't really know how to do this, and you hear her sucking and everything like that. There was some report that was actually something that happened that they just happened to record, but you know,
But
it,
like
yeah,
as loud as it is, and like what I've learned about audio and stuff through podcasting, it feels like what they put a boom mic on his nuts.
that's
Like
yeah,
I
it's
I I gotta call shenanigans on that. I really do.
well, but this was Bad Boy, so who knows what Sean had going on,
True.
and
You
that
know
was
what?
early on. So
I
it
yeah.
was
You know
early. It
what?
was early
Son,
Bad Boy. It was early
son.
Bad Boy. So it's not like this wasn't deep in everything like that.
You know
He
what?
was still early in, but you
After
know,
after everything we've heard in this trial, it really is not far fetched that he put a boom mic under his sack. So
Right.
I'm not. You know what? When you framed it that way, yo, this case is really changing a lot of my '90s memories. It
as
Yeah, it
really.
is.
I'll
Sorry.
say
Yeah.
this: as a middle school science teacher, I'm just happy to get my dick sucked. I'm not gonna compromise it by trying to film it, broadcast it, stream it.
No Shannon
No,
Sharp moves. You're not trying to do no
no.
Shannon Sharp.
Yeah.
It was
All
by
right.
accident.
Listen,
I'll,
we
I'll,
can keep this a secret, baby.
I'll,
Oh
I'll,
man.
I'll bring an end to this with the next question, which is who had the more honest view of death, afterlife, sort of DMX with the prayer and the convo, the last couple of tracks on it on his album, or Biggie with suicidal thoughts. Fuzz,
What? the way
just between those two.
the way he looked at you.
I know, like it was a
I just,
surprise. I was
I,
asking
I
the
just feel like
question.
these questions are getting weird. I don't know. Um, give me them both again.
which is a better bit? DMX ending his album praying for salvation, or the
well,
guy talking about suicide?
well, no, I
No,
mean,
I feel
because they
like
end up both as
Biggie's a much
tracks.
more real situation.
The what?
Biggie.
Is a much more real situation as opposed to DMX. I mean, as opposed to him, praying to God.
I mean, he's praying to
No,
God, but
I'm
is he
not.
ready to do it? Biggie ready to do it?
I mean, the album ends with a gunshot, so
Yeah.
it's the I I I
So you know
love
what I'm saying? Biggie ended it.
I
DMX just
actually
prayed.
I actually love that song, Suicidal Thoughts. I think it's very underrated because, again, the storytelling aspect of a hustler at the end of his rope. I think that what we know about mental health. I mean, I'm sure there's no, medical or health insurance and drug dealing. So I'm sure there's a lot of mental health issues in that
Mm.
industry, I would like to think. So I think there's an authenticity to that was cool, but I do like the sense of DMX seeking salvation. I think that's true to who he was, especially as he progressed in his career, becoming religious and whatnot. There's a certain authenticity to what he did that. And he would end his concerts with a prayer. Like it just that's very much genuinely who he was, this dichotomy of struggle of good and evil within him. And you kind of see elements of that in the album with the prayers. I go with the prayer.
Kenny.
I go with the prayer and the combo as well for the same reasons. Just someone that's trying to just kind of find the light in life. Going through the darkness and just trying to find a way out. So that's what kind of resonated with me. So absolutely, the prayer and the combo.
All right, I'm not spoiling anything with the Wires because the Wires final episode, spoilers, ends with Marlo, which is the big character, leaving a high-priced dinner with an executive who's laundering his money to return to the block to strong arm some kids for a street corner. Upon reaching his zenith, he returns to what's comfortable. In the case of Big, on suicidal thoughts, it's he calls a friend and eventually puts a gun to his head. Um, it and yeah, it does end that album, but it's like they're both expressing themselves through that album. They both have a affection. So the question, Kenny, who has the overall best sign of affection? Is it Biggie with Me and My Bitch, or is it X and his talk of any or of the many dogs that he refers to on the album? Kenny, who's got the better sign of overall affection? So when it comes to their opposite, so to speak.
I'm gonna go with DMX and his dog because, especially knowing the backstory of that, growing up with all the hell that he went through, and that the only dogs were there to show him love. Knowing that backstory, I'm going with DMX.
Ed,
And I think it's something me and Fuzz have discussed. There's nothing like the love of a dog, man. Like human will turn on you on a dime. Dog, that's real love, man. I'm sorry. I realize that probably bothers some people, and I don't have kids, so I can't speak on that bond. But like, and the thing is, that opening line bothers me with Biggie. I never met anyone
Yes,
good. I'm sorry. I've never met someone that dropped dead gorgeous. I've seen J-Lo in my face to face. Still not happening. No. No. That line
Yeah,
bothers me.
yeah.
I mean, it's a dope
Talk
song,
about
but
things that haven't aged well. That hasn't aged well at all.
I've never met, I can't even think of a woman that's stunning in fake, real, in any way, shape, or form where I'm like, yeah, you look that good. Nah, that's not happening. I'm sorry. It's just not how I roll.
Fuzz, your thoughts?
I
Who
mean, like Ed referred to, I'm a firm believer. What everybody really, really wants to find is unconditional love. And there's not many beings that are capable of it, but dogs are one of them. Humans aren't. So I'm going with DMX because the only unconditional love you're gonna get is pretty much from a dog.
all right.
Yeah,
Only living being in my life that I could stand here and say like confidently would have killed for me or died for me is a dog.
Mm.
plus Biggie had questionable taste in women as far as loyalty, in
Yeah.
that he drew trifling women into his life. No disrespect to Faith, but from what I understand, she was ready to throw hands with anybody and everybody at any given moment when she was drunk. Little Kim, same thing. Charlie Baltimore, ratchet as hell. Like I'm and hey, like I'm not judging. That's your speed. Hell, I've had my fair share of ratchet and trailer park myself, but like it just, I don't know. I feel like I'd rather come home to my dog than that.
All right. Well, coming home to somebody would mean two people, but there's different tracks on both these albums where there's two different voices. It's two different distinct voices, but as we know, it's the same artist doing both of them. So, of the two voices on the same track, which do you prefer between "Give Me the Loot" by Biggie or Damien or "Stop Being Greedy" by DMX? Which is a better track that you've got two voices? I'll say that because uh, Matt, who was supposed to be on this call but was unfortunately unable to join us, he said DMX because he literally thought it was two people. So
I I felt the same way about Give Me the Loot until fucking Fuzz corrected me. He hit me up to that as like, oh, that's not a guest. That's not a guest either. That's Biggie. I'm like, what? For real? Like that's probably my second favorite song on that album. So I'm biased. I love that interplay of two people scheming on this robbery spree. A true motherfucker going out for the loot. I
Right.
just, you know,
mm,
everything about it, the Giuliani references is very to that time vibe, vibe of that time. Sorry, apologize. Um, yeah, that song is just chef's kiss.
Kenny, your thoughts?
I love Stop Being Greedy, mainly because I love how the beat changes when each personality goes back and forth, where it's just cool DMX, and then when he gets animated with the other personality, how the beat
Mhm.
becomes more sinister. Stop Being Greedy.
Fuzz
So it's Stop Being Greedy versus
Give me the loot.
versus Damien because you got two voices.
Yeah.
He's got one voice between him and the other voice that's the devil, and those are
so
two
Damien or
distinct
Stop Being
voices.
Greedy.
So you leave it out, give me the loot, huh?
No,
Those
I'm just
three.
asking.
Oh,
Those
it's
three.
three.
It's
It's
out of
three.
those
So
three.
between the out of
Give
those
me the
three.
loot. Give me
I'm
the
gonna go
loot.
between Stop Being Greedy and Give Me the Loot, depending on what you're asking. I kind of like Stop Being the Greedy as the best song. Give Me the Loot is probably the best back and forth as far as like conversationally in a song. If that answers it, I don't know.
Side note to this, my favorite song where somebody's rapping with the devil is actually Cameron. Can't
Death.
remember the name of this song. Death. Yeah, that's it.
Hmm.
I felt like what DMX did, I feel like Cam did better. That was on Sex, Drugs, Entertainment, right? I'm blanking.
No, that was on the one where he had the looking
Oh,
zesty with the
Confessions
sledgehammer.
Confessions of Fire.
Confessions of Fire, yeah.
That's early, Cam. Um,
Yeah.
But
This
so is
is
SDE.
yeah, it's pre Dipset. SDE
Look
was
at
the last
Confessions
album.
of Fire. Like I don't know, They're both kind of, I don't know. It's tough to call the best, but that's not what we're talking about.
Yeah. So
No,
yeah.
I was
Let me
gonna
not
say,
digress.
I will say the Damien. There's actually two other Damien tracks. I don't know if y'all are aware of that. I heard the second one is on the next album, and for some reason it features Marilyn Manson. He just sort of is singing along in the chorus, which is the same, the snake, the rake, the rat, the dog, how it's that, but he's
I
kind of
remember that now.
I
Yeah.
remember
I
that
do
too.
yeah,
That was
remember
on
that now.
Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood.
yeah, and it's like, all
What?
right, what? Go ahead.
I
I
was
mean,
gonna say, listen, I'm a Marilyn Manson fan, judge away. I've been to
mm,
his shows, but I never understood hip hop's obsession with Manson because Kanye would later work with him, DMX worked with him, and look, I get how you're drawn to a certain degree. I know Fuzz definitely hates Marilyn Manson, so I'm gonna put that out there. Like in no way, shape, or form is he into industrial music, industrial metal whatsoever. But maybe Ministry. I don't know. But I remember when Antichrist Superstar was a big deal when we were at BU, and
mhm.
every rapper was flocking to work with Marilyn Manson, despite the Satanism and despite the Nazism and despite X, Y, and Z. And but the whole, Manson was a byproduct of that era. The 90s was about shock value, shock value,
So,
shock value.
so if anything, they would have probably seen someone who had been depicted as something that he clearly wasn't. If you actually,
No,
talk to the person and met them, they're like, well, that's not this, not this person at all. But
no, it's performance art at the end of the day. And I
yeah,
think that, and that's I think my appeal to him is that in a lot of ways DMX is performance art. It's just more
mm-hmm.
authentic because Yonkers.
Yeah.
you
You
know,
can sense that he actually was there and lived. You're like, yeah, no, I can clearly see that happen to him. Um,
Right. And that's a good point as far as performance art, because even if you look at the cover of Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood, DMX is soaking wet in blood. So, yeah.
all right, I'm
And
gonna.
plus, also goes back to like censorship because it was still the late 90s going into the early 2000s and, the parental advisory stickers and stuff like that. So they probably looked at each other as kindred spirits. We're
yeah, they
trying to
they
even put our music out.
people were protesting Marilyn Manson. And it's funny you said that to that Fuzz. Remember when we went to go see the Hard Knock Life tour? The majority of that crowd, it was at Lowell or Worcester, one of the two arenas. It
Worcester.
was in Worcester. But like in front of us was this very suburban mom, Bostonian as Bostonian gets.
Yeah.
You can read between the lines, and her teenage kids in front of us. And I'm looking at Buzz like, yo, what kind of parenting is this? I guess it's cool parenting in hindsight, but at the same time, it's like they were kind of killing my vibe a little bit. Like, but it was that era of like rebelliousness and like fringy, like edgy, the Opie and Anthony era, the Howard Stern era, Manson,
Mm.
and I think that's why DMX appealed to that demo. Like if you'd have told me, oh yeah, this is gonna be one of the whitest crowds at a DMX show, I'd have been like, yeah, stop, so
In
whatever.
my defense, I probably didn't blow any weed smoke at those kids.
Yeah,
I did.
yeah. Oh
All
no,
right.
you unapologetically did because I remember going like, yo, man, I remember
Doesn't
saying
sound
to
like
him,
me.
I remember saying to him, I was like, yo, man, like, yo, this kind of kids there.
Doesn't
All right.
sound
And
like me.
On that note, I'm gonna take a pause to make sure that we don't get licensed by the FCC or anything bad like that. Hold on a
yeah,
moment. All right, we got the licensings cleared, so we're gonna talk about the top three released singles. So this is basically the top three out of the following tracks: Juicy, Big Papa, the One More Chance remix, which is the song that was actually released as a single, Warning, which was released as a promotional single, Get At Me Dog, Stop Being Greedy, Rough Riders Anthem, and How It's Going Down. Anybody got a 1, 2, 3 off jump?
I got a
Ed,
one.
you got a one, Fuzz?
I got
What's
a
one?
one, and I'm stopping at one. On God.
okay.
All
Is
right.
Right.
on God one of the
So,
tracks?
10
nah,
toes down.
Ed can co-sign me on this one. when DMX dropped, there wasn't a bigger DMX guy than me. And Get At Me Dog is the raw shit that I love. And that not many people outside of Griselda are giving us nowadays. But god damn it. Get At Me Dog is just a raw motherfucking hip hop joint.
All
And
right.
it is why I love DMX from the beginning. And I'm telling you, ask this guy right here. He will tell you nobody fuck with DMX as hard as I did when DMX came out. Hard as fuck with Get At Me Dog.
Kenny, you got an overall number one.
Whew. Same artist, DMX, but Rough Riders Anthem. I
Yeah.
still get I still get loud to that to this day. I just the energy behind that song, just everything about that song is perfect.
I have a memory of when that song came out. It's like you couldn't go down a street without hearing somebody playing that out of their car speakers. That beat, just that sound was there, and then the remix came out. So then you heard it again. It was like Benjamin's. It was like where you heard it and then you heard it again and everything like that, and it just you kept coming out. No,
I'm gonna give you 2 lines. Y'all Bamas wanna be killers? Get at me, dog. And that's that. That's that.
Yeah.
DMX shut the whole shit down with that. Y'all
So
Bamas want the real.
I
And I think he just barked.
I
I don't think he said shit. He just barked.
I
Yeah.
I agree to a
That's
certain
the hard shit of everything you mentioned. Get at me, dog. That's just hard.
I agree with him to a large degree, but I have my personal favorite in a second. But I do because it was like the
But you
energy
wear
of that
Pokemon
song.
shirts.
It was it's not Pokemon, it's Dragon Ball Z. Huge difference there. That's all I'm saying.
And
Like
you what was your other option? Care Bears?
yes, Care Bears. I was gonna wear
Yeah.
yo, Karen, yeah.
Don't ever
I'm a
let DMX
caring
name
guy.
come out your mouth ever again.
When I heard Get At Me Dog, like the man's literally rapping about robbing people at the tunnel. Like that's like again, it's a certain vibe, very specific to New York at that time. But as much as I love that song, I gotta go with Rough Riders Anthems. That stop, drop, shut them down, open up shop. Oh my God. Like, yo, that was like my workout song. That was my party song. And the video, talk about it gave a visual to the goonery going on in Yonkers. Like it made me scared and never want to go to
He
see
asked
Rendezvous
if you
ever
wanted to
again.
be a killer. And if so, holler at him.
Yo,
Tell me what's harder.
what was
Tell
that?
me.
What was that 50 Cent line? Nobody do it harder than dudes from Yonkers. Like,
Yeah.
I find it
He
interesting.
asked, do you want to be a killer?
So
Now I
If
will
basically,
you
say this though.
do,
What I do love
holler
about that
at him.
song though, what I do love about that, which I learned years later, is that was actually a diss track for K Solo.
yeah,
Hey, that Bama K can suck my dick.
Yep.
yeah,
He was a
yeah.
ghostwriter for K Solo, and K Solo didn't want to give him any credit.
You know
Which
what's
is fascinating since K Solo is Red's brother,
Yep.
and you've got one of the nicest lyricists of all time. Probably that's what it is. I got one of the nicest
Oh,
lyricists of all
wait.
time
Who?
upstairs.
Right.
Are you
Oh, you're
Red?
talking about his brother.
I'm talking about his
yeah,
brother. Yeah,
that's
Reggie
Red Man's
Oh,
Noble.
brother.
okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Cool.
Reggie Noble is one of the nicest lyricists of all
Thought you were
time.
talking about K Solo. I was like, Spellbound was
No,
cool.
no. That's the point, which is his brother's great. I'm not. I got to get somebody else to get me some lyrics so I can be great enough because my brother's still going to be out rapping me and then not paying X. So then X
Right.
right to get at me, dog. Yeah. All right. So
I to that I found out yesterday. I was yesterday's old when I found out that Party Up, the DMX song, was about Corrupt. I did not realize that was a diss track about
I
Corrupt.
didn't know that either.
Corrupt was fucking Foxy Brown.
No, it was the opposite. Foxy was cheating on Corrupt with DMX.
Either
And
way, she was fucking both of them.
yes, and that song, and that's why he was angry at Swizzy because he hated that beat. He's like, "What the fuck are we doing? I'm not doing shit for the club." And Swizzy's like, "You want to make money?" And number two, it was directed at Crow. So he was like double angry. And I'm sure he was on a crack high that day when he wrote that song. It's pretty obvious in the lyrics. Like, but yeah, I was yesterday's old when I learned that Party Up, which is played at NBA games and bar mitzvahs and all over
That's
the place.
Right.
I was gonna wait
Listen,
to
word
get to
get
that.
at me dog out when I bar mitzvahed.
All right. I mean,
Oh,
you
man.
mentioned that, and I do find it interesting that, we're talking about, these are albums talking about crime and killing people and everything like that. And as you said, they're being played at NBA basketball games and bar mitzvahs and everything like that now, because that's what they are. They're suddenly classic songs. So there wasn't really a three, but it sounds like it's either going to be Get At Me Dog or Rough Riders Anthem as the one and two, which means Biggie's not even a top three in this. Is basically I mean,
I'll throw in Juicy. I'll throw in Juicy as a top three. I think, I think as a kid from Brooklyn, there's something inspirational about that song that I really cared. Like I remember reading Word Up magazine, like Salt and Pepper Up, and as
I'll
commercial as it
say
was, I love that track. There's an inspiration to it, especially as a kid from grew up in Brooklyn.
Biggie's probably my favorite rapper of all time. I'll put the One More Chance remix in top three.
I'm not.
Maybe Juicy up there too. But like as far as just appeal, the One More Chance remix, I think. But as far as what we're talking about now, if we're just talking about like the hardest track, I'm still here with Get At Me Dog.
Well, no one's questioning the hardness of it. We are now going to add to the hardness of tracks. Both of these artists were, I don't say wise enough, but have graced us with the rapping alongside LOX, which is I'm gonna mess up, but Jada Kiss, Chic Luke, and who am I missing? I always
Styles
start off.
P, bro. Yo,
Thank
they
you.
just dropped.
Big.
By the way,
Thank
they
you.
dropped
So
a new
Nero, the
freestyle
kid.
today. They dropped a new freestyle today on Red Bull, on
Really?
the Red Bull
so
platform.
you
Yeah.
you said
On what
Styles P.
platform?
Red Bull Spiral, they do this freestyle thing. The LOX dropped today. So
Red Bull
that
Spiral.
yeah, it's called Red Bull Spiral, and it's just dudes freestyling. Like they had Red and Meth on it. They had Coast Contra. This week they had LOX. So that's
I forgot Styles P, which is perfect because one of the criteria on these songs to be chosen from is it has to be all three members of the LOX. So Get At Me Dog is out because it's just Styles P from the LOX on that track. So the tracks, if you can come up with a better one that I've forgotten, then you can add that to the list. But the best tracks featuring it's not featuring, it's with DMX and the LOX or Biggie and the LOX. Niggas done started something.
ooh.
Rough Riders Anthem, the remix, all about the Benjamins,
Last days.
money, power, respect.
Last days.
Oh,
No,
that's a good one.
last
Ooh.
Last
days,
days.
Last
Ready, hit
days.
20,
the last
24,
days.
Last
24 hours
days.
to live.
24 hours to live.
Last days.
So you go at last days.
I'm going last days.
That's the one, Ed?
24 hours to live. Everyone had a dope verse on that. Mace got on real hot on that. Jada had the ill verse, but I wanted to live forever, but this wasn't fame. When you end it like that, drop the mic right there. Boom, done. 24 hours to live.
Kenny?
Same 24 hours.
Wow, 24
Y'all heard
hours.
last days?
Last days is dope. Don't get it twisted.
See,
But
it's money, power, respect.
I feel
It's
I
money,
feel like
power,
y'all don't like
respect.
the hard shit.
I'm sorry. I'm
I
gonna
mean,
pull
excuse me, but I'm feeling like y'all don't like the hard shit.
both me and Matt,
wait.
have money, power, respect because, and this is quoting Matt, X had probably the dopest guest spot of all time. It wasn't long, but that shit was efficient.
You
And
heard
that's
last
X's
days?
100%
verse on
correct.
there is crazy.
It's 100% correct. Are you
I
kidding me?
think the
Money, power,
24
respect.
hours, I think
I'm not
24 hours to
doubting
live had
24
a
hours.
better voice.
So no hard shit.
I don't know how you don't see how 24 hours to live isn't hard. They talk about robbing.
Not hard like last days.
I don't
Everybody's
know,
verse in there
son.
was crazy. Black Rob,
You
Mace.
listen to what they're saying? You listen to what
Yo,
they're saying?
that Mace verse. Mace doesn't get enough respect as a
What's beef to
lyricist.
you?
Dope verse. I'm not
All
shitting
right.
on Last Days. It's just that as a concept, as a song, and then everyone at the top of their game killing it, starting with Mace and ending with X. Like it's one of my
24
Right. And
favorite
that's
hours to
what
live,
pushes it
concept
over
last
the
days,
top
tracks.
too,
similar
because
concept.
every so often Murder Mace would make an appearance and he would kill it. Up until then it was just, Mace and Beth, the jiggy rapper and stuff like that. But
I
when
I
Murder
love
24
Mace would
hours
pop
to
up,
live, last days, similar concepts, right?
yeah, it is. But it's just 24 hours is very specific theme of like this is
If you
it.
don't like the hard shit, just let me know.
All right.
I don't
All
know how you
right.
don't see it hard.
Because
But
24 hours to live, love it.
on
But
on
it's
All
not
right.
hard like last days.
on
The
a side
hardness.
note, about hardness, Murder Mace, yo, people want to act. I can't really say the word, but that's like my favorite Mace song with Busta on the hook. Yo, like that.
All
One
I'll
of
say is
I
last
think that's why
days,
I like
the
24
weak
so
link,
much.
Cheek Luch, probably has his hardest verse ever. And
Ooh,
then everybody else get their shit
yeah,
off. And then everybody else get their shit off.
yeah. I
But the
agree with
weak
that.
link and the locks, let's think
Fine.
about the last days.
the locks were helped to get
Sheik,
their deal
Sheik's,
on Bad Boy
Sheik's verse on last days
by
was hard. First verse.
Dame Grease. Dame Grease produced several songs on the Locks album, including the aforementioned Money, Power, and Respect, which I take as the
He
best
didn't
track with
record.
those.
He didn't produce last days.
No, he did. I guess not. Who produced Last Days then? Since you
Havoc,
since you're so on
It
Your
was
Master
guess
Havoc,
is as
wasn't
good
it?
that
as
was
mine.
Havoc
Havoc.
produced it.
Ah,
Yo,
okay.
Havoc get no props, man.
Yeah, he really
It
doesn't
I
get
sounds
enough
like a
digress.
respect
Havoc
for being a
beat.
dope producer.
He gets props from Fuzz. We'll give credit where credit due because
Right.
he's gonna die on that last day's hill. Pretty obvious. It's a
Right.
hard
I was
hill.
I
It's
talking.
a
listen.
hard
I
hill,
just like
apparently.
the
I
hard
was
shit. That's
talking
all. I
about
like the
Dame
hard shit.
Grease. Dame Grease,
And if you like the locks, you also should like the hard shit.
Dame Grease helped work on We'll Always Love Big Papa, the aforementioned Money, Power, Respect. He also worked on Harlem World before he became the primary producer for It's Dark and Hell is Hot. He's the primary producer on a lot of the tracks on that album, the same way that Easy Mo B is the primary producer on a lot of the tracks on Ready to Die. So the next question is, who's of those two, who is the better main producer? Easy Mo B on Ready to Die or Dame Grease on It's Dark and Hell is Hot?
That's
Kenny?
tough.
Easy Mo B. One of my favorite beats on Ready to Die is the What with Method Man. I love that beat. Beat is killer.
All right. Ed?
Wow, I'm gonna get called soft again because I'm going with Easy Mo B because there's a variety of range of hard shit and party joints like Juicy. Like it was a bigger. I think he showed more range, whereas DMX is like that's the album you put before you do the Dead President stick up and like go rob an armored car.
Pretty much. Fuzz?
I'm gonna say this. I'm not picking Easy Mo B because the best beat on Biggie's joint was a Primo beat.
True.
Mm, fair.
And
Which we'll get to in a second.
if you
Which we'll
take
get to in a
each
second.
album as a whole, I feel like as a feel, DMX's was different. And again, this is somebody who's Biggie is my favorite rapper of all time. But DMX, just the sound of it, the It's Dark and Hell is Hot, it just set a tone. When everybody was trying to get jiggy, everybody was talking about the ice they got. DMX held it down he held it down.
All right.
And I can't go with Easy Mo B because the best beat to me on the whole Biggie joint is Unbelievable, which is a
Mm.
Primo beat.
Which is what we'll get to next, which is
When do I get to talk about
as
Run?
you could have talked about it
No,
before,
you
but
told me.
you
You
were
told me.
stuck on you the one
No,
that
no,
was
no,
stuck
no.
on
You didn't present.
Last
You
days.
didn't
What do
present me
you
without
stayed
the
on
proof.
last days for
You
a
use
long little bit.
you
You
use
was
your
No, no,
one
no,
pass.
don't act like that. We had it locked down before we went
all
into
right.
this call.
We,
Before we went into this call, you told me.
we will get let me finish this one question because
All right, but don't fake on me though. Don't fake on me.
you just mentioned Unbelievable, which was premiere on Ready to Die. He was one of a couple of the guest producers, including Lord Finesse, who did Suicidal Thoughts. Two guest producers on the DMX album, although as Fudd said, Dame had it sounding one sort of way. Irv Gotti got on there and kept the same sort of path. Swiss Beats is on there because it's Rough Rider, so it's Swiss Beats. So the question is, who was the best guest producer on the one of these two albums? So Irv, Swiss Beats, Premier, which is I'm assuming Fuzz is going to say, or Lord Finesse.
Why you gotta assume what I'm gonna say?
Because you were just bigging up Premier as the hottest track
But you're
on
not
Ready to
assuming
Die.
Ed or nobody. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. That's cool. I'm used to it. I'm used to it.
I'm sorry. What was it? What was the question again? I apologize. I got
the
distracted by
best, the best guest producer out of Irv Gotti, Swiss Beats, DJ Premier,
I
and Lord
sorry.
Finesse.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Primo, right? He was on that list because that's what I'm going with. Primo.
It's unbelievable. It's not necessarily on. It's as far as their career. It's just the
No, no,
track
no,
that
no,
they
no, no.
did.
Why are you
I
trying to sway him from
so
picking Premier though?
I'm not
Primo,
trying to
See,
sway
you see,
anybody.
you see,
Primo's like one of
you see what going on?
Primo is one of my favorite producers in any genre of music, period. Like I put him up there with Trent Reznor and Phil Spector. That's how much respect I have for Primo. Primo can take jazz beats, he could take grimy hard beats, he could give you a party beat, he can work with Christina Aguilera or Redman, doesn't matter. So I'm biased towards DJ Premier. Plus, I had drinks with him and he was a cool motherfucker.
Nice.
So that's a biased one, Kenny.
Yes.
My answer is gonna be the same. Primo. Juicy is my least favorite Biggie track. In fact, that summer when they dropped the maxi single, Unbelievable was the B side to Juicy. I wore that song out all summer. So, yeah,
So did
Primo's
Fud.
my answer.
All right. Uh, Matt did say Lord Finesse because the Suicidal Thoughts is a nice track.
He
I
doesn't get
stand by
enough
the
respect.
fact he
Lord
doesn't
Finesse
get, yeah,
respect.
Lord Finesse doesn't get enough respect, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand off the fact that the Rough Riders anthem is coming out of car speakers and open windows. That's the way I hear that song coming out of places and buildings because it's too loud that you have to let it out. That's that Rough Riders anthem at that time when it was coming. It was everywhere. It was just
Oh,
everywhere, and it
to
was,
to
yeah.
that to that, and Fuzz was there. So and keeping with the spirit of the Wire, you remember the white boys that were dealing crack in the Wire?
Mhm.
That was every white boy in Massachusetts. Every masshole dealing drugs or wannabe look
Maxwell.
dealing drugs. That was them playing DMX, like whether it was Get At Me Dog or Rough Riders Anthem. Like so I remember Fuzz would get mad because these white boys would come out in Tims and like shorts and jorts. And he's like, yo, that's our fashion. So
Basically.
what are you doing? This is DC fashion. What are you doing?
If I remember correctly, Fuzz doesn't Kiss got to put on his Tims or had his Tims feeling like they was Nike Airs on him in the aforementioned run.
Oh, so
That's
we
a
doing this
great
now?
segue into that.
Yeah,
So
and
we
it's
doing
great.
this now?
That
Yes,
was
he gave
great.
me the alley oop. Yo, you got to dunk it now,
Yeah,
son.
you
It's
got
in
it.
the
I mean, it's just
air.
weird
Yeah.
because when we was offline, we was like,
Uh-huh.
go ahead, Buzz, and then
Yeah.
we got online, and it was like,
Oh,
it's
I was supposed
cool.
to, I was supposed to do that right then and there.
I mean,
We,
if
we,
you want me to talk about it, then yeah,
Yo, he
I'll
just
go.
gave you the
I'll
oop, son.
listen.
Right. He threw the lob. You got to go yam it now.
Can I
Yes.
listen?
yes.
We talked about the best crime story. I don't know how we talking about other people doing crime. Run, run. That's it. That's it. Ghost, Jada Kiss, they both got off and talked about what they were doing, not what anybody else was doing. What they were doing. Run,
Bro was dope.
run.
Run
And
was
as far
dope.
as guest producers, I'm going with Quincy Jones just to avoid the judging.
Just to avoid the what?
Just to avoid the judges.
Oh man.
I love it.
All right. Well, you all get judged off of this. Who's both DMX and Biggie are no longer with us. And so with Biggie, you only got that, you get Ready to Die, you get Life After Death, and then everybody's, B-side and everything that you can try and find, everything like that of Biggie, but that was it, and we lost what he could have become, and it becomes a whole what if thing. It becomes, well, he would have possibly done this X to a similar extent, but not to the same extent, because he did push out. I mean, he did a movie with Jet Li. I mean, like, he got out there. He was able to take advantage of it, but it's like he didn't get to do it all. So whose legacy is been better off by the fact, or worse off that they're died and weren't able to truly put it out there, is the question. Ed, any thoughts?
I go with Biggie. What is that saying? Better to die young, and what's that Kurt Cobain line? I'm killing the line, and so I apologize. But I think in a lot of ways, Biggie is the Roberto Clemente of hip hop, because everyone talks about what could have been about Clemente, career that got snuffed out of his control. Same thing with Biggie. And I think because he's frozen in time, like I've heard new school hip hop fans get mad that Biggie's still in people's top 10, because it's like, yo, he only did 2 albums. But the quality of those 2 albums, read this, but quality of those 2 albums was so good, a Clemente level of talent, that it's undeniable. And so in a lot of ways, I think it's better to go out young than fade into oblivion. And like, how many of the rappers that we listened to growing up are now playing like, venues that are like 50 people? You know what I mean? Like, Nice and Smooth ain't playing the Garden. And I'm sorry. I don't mean to diss them, but I'm just like,
they're not. Kenny,
even someone like Rakim, like, Rakim is like one of the most respected God MCs, and he's not filling the Barclays. It's, if we're being honest, like,
respect doesn't equate to profit.
Fair, it's true.
Kenny, your thoughts? Whose legacies?
I think it's DMX. I think it's DMX mainly because we got to really know him personally, and he's just, like with Biggie, it's like, we think about what could have been, and we were just getting to see more of his personality. See, well, with the exception of some questionable rap lines, we were starting to see his sense of humor and see that he was a funny dude. But with DMX, we got to see how funny he was, and just, with the prayers, and everything like that, we got to see a lot more of his personality. And I mean, guy even sang Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. We still bump that every year for Christmas. Bro, DMX was just a lovable dude.
How come nobody talks about DMX's Hanukkah songs? How come? How come nobody talks about DMX's Eid songs? Why we gotta be so racist every time we podcast?
But I think that's more, we miss we miss X's personality more than anything else. Just like, damn, I miss that dude. So X is my answer.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I'm gonna try to change this topic and close, since you're asking why we don't. So why can we not use sports to give me the best reason, the best album, the better of these 2 albums? Basically, this is, use a sports analogy to say what album moves on. Here, I'll give you my example that I actually just wrote up earlier today. I'll send it to you. This is the power of technology.
I do want to add, as you're looking for that, I do want to add one thing about DMX as you're looking for that. I think that is the beauty of DMX, that we got to see that he wasn't just this gruff guy from It's Dark and Hell is Hot, and this suicidal guy from, the second album. We got to see the whole adventure, his, like, he became Unk in a lot of ways, right? Like, as before he passed away. And to see where he started as this angry young man that made an album built to rob people, to Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, like, it's a very interesting career arc that we saw. And I love that. And to that, he was still old enough and of the era. One of my favorite last interviews that he did was when he just crapped all over Drake. He was ahead of the curve on Drake.
Yeah, he
Oh
was.
man.
All right,
Ooh.
I'm gonna try and get through this fast so we can try and finish up. But I viewed and the rankings for this because this is a bracket. This is a 2-3 matchup, and I view DMX as the sexy 3 seed, as you say, that guy who you knew as a young age, then you kind of saw come up and he kind of came down, and everybody's like, this is the year he's gonna finally win it. This is the team he's gonna finally like Kelvin Sampson in Houston this past, right? They're gonna do it this year. They're gonna really do it this year. And then you look on the other side and like, oh, that's right. They're a number 2 seed for a reason because it's still Biggie. It's still there's that whole little 3 album stretch in the middle where you get Machine Gun Funk and Everyday Struggle, and then Give Me the Loot, and it's a too strong of a lineup, and yeah, so that's the 2 seed moves on, and despite his flaws, Biggie would get through, and so that's my sports analogy answer as to why Ready to Die is the better of the 2 albums. So if anybody has anything similar to that, now's your chance.
To Fuzz getting pissed off, I compare it to the
No, I'm
Spurs.
I'm just gonna say I got skipped whole last round.
What's that?
I got skipped whole last round though.
Oh, you got skipped the whole no, you
I
didn't.
did though.
Oh, okay. So who do you now's
I
your chance.
if anything, I'm skipping because of time, but
Well, he's skipping me because of time.
I'm skipping you now to get an answer from you, but
I will
you're
shut up. I talked to him.
go ahead.
What are you asking me?
And
Which of
what
the two
sports
albums? Well, no, you haven't got to give me a sports analogy because I got to
You
go to trivia
listen. I'll
question.
say this:
Which of the
Biggie
two
didn't
albums?
have a chance to shine. DMX had a chance to shine. People didn't understand him. So I'll go with Biggie because Biggie had no chance. DMX was around. People just didn't get him.
that's fair. That's fair. And I think that people warmed up to as he got, it's the whole thing that you start as angry youth and you start to change as well. I think that's part of it too. He went to rehab, became more religious.
All right.
I mean, there were a lot of roadblocks for him.
Yeah, of course. Like that
He
he lived
found a
as long as
path to success, and then people kept putting.
he did is kind of
Yeah,
rather we're blessed.
yeah. And it was like he found peace right before he
Mhm.
passed away.
Yep. He
All
was
right.
very comfortable in his own skin, which you can see back in the early days. That crack, man. I don't know. I've never tried it, never will, but like,
Yeah.
All right. All right. All right.
DMX
Both.
wasn't always on
I'm.
crack though.
I'm going
no,
to. I'm going to
probably
end this
meth.
discussion on crack and meth with a trivia question. Both of these artists have now been called the greatest, blah, blah, blah. But when they dropped, when Biggie had the heat from Dreams of fucking an R&B bitch and was featured on Craig Mack, and X then came out 4 years later. But when they dropped right at that time, they weren't necessarily as hot. So, according to the Google machine, how many albums did they combine to sell in their opening week? So, how many did Biggie sell in his opening week? And then how many did X sell in his opening week? And that number is the number I'm looking for. Okay.
What
And I'll give you
albums?
Ooh.
Ready to Die
Both out.
and both albums. I'll
I
give you a
want
hint, which is X had Rough Riders anthem ring out of every
So it's
star
Ready to
car
Die and It's
stereo.
Dark and Hell is Hot.
Mm-hmm. Combined album sales for those two.
I think
Kenny got an go ahead.
because it's dark and hell is hot. Actually, I believe debuted at number one because DMX is the only artist to ever have two albums debut at number one in the same year. It's dark and hell is hot and flesh of my flesh and blood of my blood. So I'm gonna say DMX sold about maybe 150,000 copies. I'm gonna say Biggie maybe sold about 75. So I'm gonna say 225.
All right, 225. Ed?
dang. I want to say between the two albums, I think he hit like 2.5 mil. Like he might have hit platinum off jump, or at least the second album.
This is opening week.
Oh, opening week. 100. Let's go 75 plus 100 plus 50. I don't do math. So 300 between all of them. Or wait, that's already been said. I'm do prices right. 3,501.
No, Kenny, you had what?
225.
You had
Oh, okay.
225.
Okay. So I'm gonna go with 330.
Fuzz,
300. Sorry, 300.
330,000
Yeah.
330,000. All
for
right.
Yes.
both in the first week.
Yes.
Okay.
Just out of ease, I'm gonna do 330,001,
All
and
right.
I feel real good about it.
The answer will be in the description for this episode. I'd like to thank all of my guests for dropping by. I'll be back hopefully soon enough with something better to put down. Take it easy on your life's highway, and you all have a good evening.